so.
Okay, one moment, please. We are live, Your Worship.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this regular council meeting of July 23rd, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Cherry, Councillor Lucial, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of July 9th, 2024. Councillor Devlin, Councillor Palmer, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. I'd just like to just further to item 12A, the pickleball club request. I just would like to acknowledge the work that Parks and Recreation has been doing with the pickleball club. It's advanced the facilities have advanced quite dramatically over the last few years, and notably the reconditioned pickleball courts down in Columbia Park, which look outstanding. So I just would like to applaud the staff for working in advance of that. Thanks.
Great. No, appreciate that. Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to go on to announcements from the mayor. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read regarding the Emergency Operations Center. So EOC Level 1 was activated on Saturday due to wildfire activity in the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, Area B, from Cranberry Creek to Shelter Bay, which resulted in an evacuation alert for those area residents. Staff are working at the EOC, and other trained personnel are ready to jump into action if needed. City staff are continually updating the emergency management webpage at rdst.ca/EM. The Alert Center, which provides push notifications to those that have signed up, Facebook and Instagram, and are sharing these updates with community stakeholders. So we just ask that everyone stay safe, and our staff assure us that we've got this. So just seeing that and that we have some power outages again this morning. All of those are related to wildfires, and we're seeing some other stuff happening in CSRD Area C again this morning, and then the Mara Mountain fire near Sicamous. All are concerning for everyone. But here in our area, Shelter Bay is a concern, and our staff are watching over that. So just want to get that out to the community. We're going to move on to item 9A, bylaw zoning amendment, bylaw 2387. And Ms. Comars, do you have a bit of a presentation or an overview that you would like to provide before we move forward on this?
I do not have a presentation, but I can provide a quick overview. Also noting that this went to APC and a full overview was provided to them at the time.
Right.
This is for two subject properties up on Camosi Road, 3139 and 3145 Camosi Road. They are adjacent to each other. They are applying to rezone from the CSRD zoning, RR2, one property split zone to R2, and the other property to RTA1. The property for RTA1 has an existing house and secondary suite on it, and they are looking to be able to operate a short-term rental out of the existing suite. We've been working with the applicant since January on this application, and we would like to move it forward.
Okay. Any questions from council before I ask for the motion to be put on the table? Seeing none, is Councillor Staples, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I do have some concerns in regards to this application. I do believe my concern is based on the short-term rental public information session that was held on February 6, 2024, when I believe that the general message that was given to the public was that no further actions in regards to STRs will be made until October. That was echoed by Mr. Simon, Ms. Komar, and I believe Mr. Gibbs at the time of that meeting. So I do believe that this is kind of this zoning, the proposed zoning change that's in front of us today is not in standing with the message that we gave the community at that time. And I would like to make a motion to defer this until the staff have prepared a report as suggested in the Public Information Center. And that report will outline the economic analysis and impact of the STRs and opting in.
Okay, so now there's been a motion to defer. Can I get some clarity on that, Ms. Floyd? And before I ask for a seconder on that, I want to know what the implications would be. Ms. Comars, you have your hand up.
If I can speak, Your Worship?
Yes.
So this is actually, the subject properties in the Thomas Brooks area are designated within the OCP as resort fringe. So these properties are to be complementary in nature to the resort. So properties in the Thomas Brooks neighborhood are awarded the opportunity to either choose to remain large rural residential lots as they are. They're able to choose to go to the RTA1. This is a specific zoning that was created specifically for this neighborhood to be complementary to the resort and allow for short-term rental opportunity. So this is actually an action item within the OCP for the Thomas Brooks neighborhood and the land use designation being resort fringe.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I'm going to ask for feedback from Councillor Stapenhurst after hearing that statement. Councillor?
Thank you. Through the chair, I do believe if Ms. Floyd could correct me if I'm not mistaken, but I do believe that there's a motion on the table to defer this. So if we could call that motion and if we can vote on it and we can move forward at that time, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Stapenhurst. So the motion to defer is not debatable. However, it hasn't been seconded yet.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a seconder on that motion. And if there is no seconder, then that motion dies. So is there a seconder for the motion to defer? Councillor Palmer. Now we're deferring until.
So you got to call the question.
Okay. All those in favor of deferring? Those who are opposed? Note that Councillor Stapenhurst is in favor. Balance of council is opposed. This motion is defeated. Thank you for your clarity. Now, moving on, there is a motion on the table.
It's not on the table.
Pardon me?
It's not on the table.
Oh, no. Do you want to put it on the table?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2387 be read a first time.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lusau. Any discussion on the motion at this time? Councillor Devlin and then Councillor Palmer.
I'm not going to be in favor of this. I've read the report, I've heard what staff say, I understand the logic behind the staff recommendation. I simply am not in favor of adding to the short-term rental pool at this time, so I won't be in favor of this. I did not go to deference because I don't think that's the appropriate action here, in my opinion.
Thank you for your comment. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. If we could just get a little bit more clarity as to the OCP as it applies to this property. Staff already talked to that, but what are the entitlements specifically with the OCP with that decision, previous decision by council?
Ms. Comars, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so our policy directives for the resort fringe land use designation may be considered for rezoning when completed in accordance with the provisions of the official community plan. So this application that we are discussing is recommended, or it is being in accordance with the official community plan. I'm going to open up the bylaw for the official community plan, and I'm going to read directly from the bylaw what the resort fringe designation is.
Okay.
And that way we can all hear it together. So it's section 4.6.7 in the official community plan. This land use designation shall accommodate low-density residential development and or tourist accommodation that is complementary and of a smaller scale than adjacent resort operations. B, direct resort fringe uses in the areas designated such as map 10, which these two subject properties are located within that. Again, one of these subject properties is to rezone to R2. The smaller of the properties with a single family dwelling and the secondary suite is the application for the RTA1. And then C, new development proposals should incorporate design measures to mitigate impacts on adjacent properties while this area transitions from its existing rural residential character to a low density and tourist accommodation style development.
Thank you, Ms. Colmars. Mr. Gibb.
Just to add to Ms. Comar's comment there, one of the things to consider as well is we do have a council approved policy DS23, which is specifically regarding guiding when staff provide support regarding different types of applications related to short-term rentals and bed and breakfasts. The policy DS23 policy directives, as Mr. Kumar had alluded to, is the properties that hold that resort fringe land use designation may be considered for rezoning when completed in accordance with those community OCP requirements. So this is one of those ones that within the resort fringe, when somebody does come forward for these rezonings, that is something that as long as it does fit within those general guidelines, we would consider supporting. However, if it was a spot zone, it would be a very different conversation.
Follow-up comment.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Just a question on that perspective, that policy, is that a policy of council?
Mr. Gibb.
Worship, it is a policy approved by council to guide staff in how we review these applications and which type of applications we bring forward with our support.
So just for clarity, then, so this is a council adopted policy giving staff direction on how to proceed with developments like this.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. So I'll just speak to it briefly. I think Councillor Stapenhurst has some very legitimate concerns regarding statements that have been made in the public sphere regarding short-term rentals. We continue to grapple and wrestle with short-term rentals and as to what's appropriate and what's not. So there's extremes out there. I don't think they're anywhere near the majority, but there's extremes that say every short-term rental should be shut down. And then there's others extreme that says that anybody should be able to do a short-term rental wherever they want, kind of thing. And those are extremes. And the challenge before us is where do we find that sweet spot, which will continue to evolve. With the previous council, they also wrestled with short-term rentals. We're considering fairly widespread allowance, seriously considering with the endorsement of the Chamber of Commerce at the time to allow short-term rentals in all residential zones, single R1. And then they wrestled with that and then ultimately determined, no, we're not going to open this up to the whole world. And they said, well, what area is appropriate? And it was Thomas Brook was the decision with that council. And I supported that decision at that time. And and then we have policy direction. So I think what staff has done is appropriate. The concern that I have, and a raising concern, and it's somewhat outside of this discussion right now, but this is an example of where confusion can happen, is it's really important that in those public forums that aren't meetings, they aren't decision-making places, that we are careful with our words and the understanding of what that means, because the public will grab onto that and say, aha, you said you would do one thing and here we're doing something else. I think there were subtle areas I did look at that. I wasn't here for that meeting, But I did look at that, and that statement about economic impact analysis or something like that was made. And I could understand why some people would take it from inference, okay, we're not going to allow any more until we figure this out. Another layer of complication is the provincial government very quickly, without adequate consultation with local governments, throwing in this whole thing about short-term rentals and taking the rights of developers away, or allowing, and also the rights of council. So one of the rights that's been taken away from this council is the ability to go to a public hearing on this. We can't do that. In the past, we had to. There were shades of gray on that, but now we are legally prohibited from gathering, a duly constituted meeting. So that's a problem. But anyway, I just want to put that sort of whole context. I think it's important as we move. Who are the policymakers, the things we say in public, and then this moving target going ahead. And because we've gone through a very, very robust and expensive OCP rewrite very recently, council has been wrestling with this, and Thomas Brook has been identified as a fringe zone. I am in support of this based on those decisions and the community consultation, notably the OCP, which went through the public. So I think it's appropriate that we approve the zoning amendment bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, but also for your clarification in that. Any other comments from council? Councillor Cherry.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd just like to read the comments provided by the Advisory Planning Committee. They were in favor of this proposal. They stated that the proposed rezoning application is consistent with the policies of the OCP, and that the proposed rezoning of the two properties will allow a future residential development and a short-term rental within the existing single-family dwelling with facilitated development form compatible with this area. So there was a comment earlier that was made that we'd be losing housing. From the looks of it, we are gaining with this change. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody as well.
Any other comments around council? Councillor Stapenhurst?
Thank you. And just to clarify, it's not that I'm opposed to short-term rentals. What I'm opposed to is providing one message to the public and then doing something that could be perceived as going against what we've already mentioned to the public. So while in general, I'm in favor of SDRs, I'm happy to move forward. So thank you.
Good. I'm going to ask you to move to lower your hand. Oh, thank you for that. All right. Any other comments from council? I'm going to call a question. All of those in favor of first reading? Opposed? Note Councillor Devlin is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. There are other motions in your package if someone cares to put item number 2 on. Councillor Palmer?
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2387 be read a second and third time.
Seconder for that motion? Councillor Lucero. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Note Councillor Devlin is opposed. Balance of councillor is in favor. Motion's carried. Moving on to item number 3. Councillor Palmer.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2387 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Cherry. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Note Councillor Devlin is opposed. Balance of councillor in favor. This motion has been passed and adopted. Thank you, Ms. Comars. Appreciate it. Going to move on to item 9B, zoning amendment bylaw 2388. 759 Big Eddy Road. Ms. Hartling, I understand this is your file. Do you have a presentation or overview that you'd like to present?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just give a brief overview of the proposal in front of you. So the property is applying to rezone from the rural residential 0.4 hectare zone, the RR04, to the R2A special low density residential zone. And this is to be able to apply to subdivide the lands to build a duplex development with a bare land strata and strata road. This is off of 759 Big Eddy Road. And The proposed property is to be serviced by community water with a communal on-site septic at the rear of the property, creating a buffer behind it. And they are proposing currently 4 duplexes. This did go to the Advisory Planning Commission as well. And they did have comments that were in support of this application, with additional feedback that they encourage the applicant to consider options for increased density, smaller lot sizes than what is outlined on the preliminary subdivision plan to maximize the R2A zone, to add more housing within the city. And they agreed that the rezoning is consistent with the policies of OCP and the facility and development form compatible with that area.
Thank you. So someone on council want to put the first motion on the table for me, please, Councilor Chair.
Move that zoning bylaw number 2388 be read a first time.
Second for the motion, Councilor Lucille. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Palmer.
Just a couple notes on the development. I'll be in favor of this application. One of the concerns I had in the whole Big area is the sewer, and so this is a strata, and they have to, so they'll be having some kind of package plant. I'm assuming in the report it states it's going to be a strata air sewer system, and they'll have to have certification for whoever's doing that and looking after that. And as the Big Eddy gets more and more developments and chopped up more and more, that's going to be a long-term issue that keeps on growing and growing. And at what point do we end up into a major infrastructure work for the city, putting in sewer? And I don't think that we've adequately sort of looked at that long term. And I think, and just mention it, saying there's more and more, so more demand on water, sewer, and the quality, even though there's regulation. And then is that in the best interest of the residents there? Because it's very expensive for them to have their own plants and own people and a lot of duplication. That's why we have a lot of local government for providing these services. So that's my biggest concern on this. If we had sewer out there, I would be supportive of higher density in that area.
Great. Appreciate the comment. Any other comments from council?
Just
Councilor Chair.
through the chair. To Director Black, can you give us any feedback on potential sewer out in the Big Eddy?
To your worship, to council, we have a preliminary look at it, and much like the other sewers, lacking areas in town that are lacking sewage, or sewer, sanitary sewers, we have at this point just considered those as being likely local area service districts, such that when the demand becomes large enough by a group of residents that makes sense to service an area, that they would come forward with a petition to ask the city to borrow money and build that infrastructure and be repaid over time. That would be repaid over time by those residents in that area. So that's the high level view that we're taking with the rest of the community, and it would likely be similar for the Big Eddy. We have not driven down deep to see what the costs, options, concepts, etc.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just if I can make a comment.
Sure.
I'm in favor of this. I think that the applicant has done a very good job in increasing density where possible and cost effective. I don't really see any other way that we could get more units out of this. It'd be fantastic if we could, but with a septic system in the strata, I think they've done a great job. The ABC's comments of trying to get more density out of the property are noted, and I hope the developer is paying attention. But I think we're getting a pretty good trade for what's happening with empty land right now.
Good. All right. Appreciate the comment. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question on first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Someone want to put number 2 on for me, please, Councilor Cherry?
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2388 be read a second and third time.
Second for the motion, Councilor Palmer. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And item number 3.
I move that zoning bylaw number 2388 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Lusal. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. This motion has been adopted. Thank you, Ms. Hartling. Moving on to item C, zoning amendment bylaw 2389. Ms. Hartling, do you have overview on this?
Yes, Your Worship. This is quite similar to the first application council considered in the Thomas Brook neighborhood. So this is for 3127 Camozy Road, just north of the 2 subject properties. There is an existing single-family dwelling with secondary suite on the property, and the property owners have applied to rezone the property from the RR2 CSRD zoning to the city's tourist accommodation 1 zone, RTA 1, in order to operate a short-term rental out of their secondary suite. They have noted that they may have future development plans for a subdivision. However, that would have to be considered under the current bylaws at the time. We do not have a subdivision application submitted at this time. The RTA 1 zone allows a minimum lot size of 1,000 square meters, which they have shown an example of a subdivision plan that meets the lot sizes. However, there's been no feasibility of access, servicing, so it's just hypothetical at this point. So what you are looking at is if the RTA 1 zone is appropriate over the subject property for the single family dwelling to have their suite rented as a short-term rental. Staff are proposing these properties go in a new draft zoning bylaw to have a stricter minimum lot size. That will be going to council in the fall later this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Palmer, you have comment, or you want to put the motion on the table?
I'll put the motion on the table and then I'll have a question.
Thank you.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2389 be read a first time.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Lusal. Comment, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll be in support of this. I do have a question about that future. So it would seem to me they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we maximize the value of our property in the future, and subdivision might make sense. The layout looks like it will be difficult to do that, just intuitively, but because it's a very odd shape. So I'm just trying to sort of figure out, okay, well, what's that subdivision look like in the future, and then what rights do they have? But I think that's, if I'm understanding from the planner, that dealing with the minimum lot size is something that we would be addressing in the future for short-term rentals. Although that also seems to be a little bit of a contradiction to the area, is a minimum size, lot size for the fringe area appropriate or not? But anyway, at the end of the day, I'm supportive. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, I'll call Councillor Chair. Do you have a comment before I call a question?
I just got a question, Ms. Sauls, through the chair to staff. In regards to future development, would future development of this property also be entitled to SDRs or just the main dwelling?
Only one SDR.
Perfect, thanks. And I guess my question is, and I see the proposal here of what could happen, it looks like it'd be a stratified road or a shared easement. I just want to make sure that if we're allowing the rezoning application, that only one suite is able to be an SDR, and the bonus of the community would be housing on the rest of it.
Ms. Hartley?
To clarify, if it was subdivided, then each subdivided lot would have that zone over it. So it'd be looked at individually.
But as per our, if I can, as per our future zoning bylaw as presented or as in the public, they wouldn't meet the minimum lot size. For the
Your
subdivision.
Worship, that's correct. Staff are proposing a higher minimum lot size if going to the tourist accommodation zone to restrict subdivision.
Just a follow-up question again, if they were to go to commercial tourism operation, would they then have more entitlements?
If they were to go to commercial, that'd be a completely different land use. They would be classified, assessed commercial. I can pull up the zone, but it has more entitlements of commercial uses like retail, restaurants, lodge, whereas the proposed LA zone is just short-term.
Okay, perfect. And as I'm interpreting that, they wouldn't be able to rezone and subdivide if we were to adopt the new zoning bylaw as written, for the future subdivisions to be STRs unless they went commercial, which may or may not be in line with the OCP of the area. Thank you.
Any other comments on the first reading? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Note that Councillor Devlin is opposed, balance of council in favor. Someone want to put number 2 on for me, please? Councillor Palmer?
I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2389 be read a second and third time.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Lusau. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Palmer?
Oh, no, I'm good.
You're good? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Note not Councillor Devlin opposed, balance of council is in favor. And item number 3, Councillor Palmer.
I move the zoning amendment bylaw number 2389 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Cherry. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Councillor Devlin is in opposition. Thank you. Moving on to staff reports, 11A, free provision of transit services for the provincial election. We have done this in the past. Mr. Black, do you want to make any statement before I ask for the motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not have any statement or.
Okay. So council want to put this on the table for me, Councillor Cherry?
I move that the provision of free transit service during the provincial election scheduled for October 19th, 2024 be approved, and that $300 be allocated from the city contingency, from the council contingency fund to offset the lost revenue for this event.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Devlin. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Lucille.
Yeah, just a note heads up after this is passed, which I'm assuming it will. I will be proposing a resolution that staff prepares a succinct draft policy that allows for free transit for all municipal, provincial, and federal elections. I'll speak to that after this.
All right, Councillor Lucille, you have a comment?
Hey, commercials. Yeah, I wanted to ask finance what the balance of our council contingency fund is, and if we should consider expanding this to all of the advanced voting on election day due to the shoulder season, allowing more people to get around town and not necessarily also vote, but also be able to experience it as well.
Ms. Lure, do you have any comment on balance of contingency fund?
Through the chair, council has not used any of their contingency fund for 2024 year to date. Staff will track and report out to the finance committee throughout the year how much council has allocated, and if we get close to the current budget, which is $20,000.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Councillor Devlin, did you have your hand up?
No.
I will call the question on this motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Councillor Palmer.
I move that staff prepare a succinct draft policy that would allow for free transit for all municipal, provincial, and federal elections. And if I get a second, I'll speak to that.
I'll second that.
Councillor Cherry seconding.
So, a few issues, a little minor things. This happens all the time routinely, and of course, we're going to pass it. It ends up being clutter on our agenda. And so it's something that I think staff could just look after on an ongoing basis. Second is most municipal, provincial, and federal elections are foreseeable. And so it should be in the budget and not out of council contingency. Council contingency, by definition of the word, should be for those unforeseen situations that council is directing. So that's the reason. So what I'm suggesting is that this will go to staff to prepare a draft policy they can look at, and I'm saying, don't make this complicated. Don't make this a bureaucratic exercise. Keep it simple. But you can look at it's, in that policy, how that funding mechanism would happen. Thank you.
Councillor Cherry.
Thanks, Marcel. I was looking for clarification on this motion, on whether or not this is just going to be on election day for each of the events, or if it includes advanced polls and other polling times as well.
Do you want to include like Welcome Week and New Year's as well in this policy? Is that what you're going to
My
ask?
first question is just in relation to upcoming elections, whether it's advanced polls and other voting dates. Would you also like that included?
So staff preparing a draft policy, and without diving in, council isn't prepared to have that. And so staff can look at that and give options like they would normally. And then just to answer Mayor Souls, your other question about other events, I think that's a separate discussion. We should keep the elections distinct as a policy thing so it doesn't get confused.
All right, Ms. Moore.
Through the chair, depending on the scope of the policy, I would recommend flowing it through as a budget request in the budget process for 2025, as this will have a reduction of revenues for providing free transit on various days that council chooses throughout the year. Just a suggestion on how to ensure that we're encompassing it in the budget going forward prior to committee.
And so if council or if staff do a policy, they can kind of work that in, can they not? And so then I'll go to Council Palmer.
Yeah, just on that, I mean, once it's council policy, it gets built into the budget. So, and also this is pretty small sums. This year, it might be $600. And there's certainly other decisions that are far, far bigger than that. So I think that the policy just will automatically roll it into the budget process. So and again, I don't want this to become we'll spend more time on staff time. This staff, I'm sure, can write this very quickly, get it on, a future agenda. And so let's not make it a big exercise.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion before I call a question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Moving on to road naming application. So, Mr. Bernacki, who has been living on Colbeck Road for a while, is not getting his Amazon parcels delivered to his address, and has asked for a name change. And I absolutely think it's an appropriate name, Bernacki Place. I was thinking about other names, Cowboy Hat Trail, something like that, but I think Bernacki Place is appropriate, Mr. Bernacki, and I thank you for that. Noting that your driveway is long and then halfway through is your gates where your property line is. So I think it's appropriate. And usually we wait until you would have croaked off. But seeing that you're doing very well, and I think it's maybe time to change our policy. You've done so much for the community. We're very grateful for what you've done. You've been in the building community all of your time here. Continue to work and do great things for our community. So I think this is an appropriate name for an appropriate road. So I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward, and really do commend you for what you've done for our community. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask if there's any other compliments from council before we put this motion on the table. Councillor Devlin.
I was just gonna say that it's impossible for us not to vote for it after that speech, Your Worship, so thank you. We have to be the biggest jerk on the planet.
Councillor Cherry, and then Councillor Palmer.
Actually, I was going to put the motion on the table.
Sure.
And then speak to it.
Okay.
I move that the name Bernacki Place. Quite frankly, I'm debating whether to make the motion Mr. Bernacki Place, but I move that the name Bernacki Place be authorized for the unnamed city road right-of-way, part of Plan 10426, abutting Colbeck Road, and 1867 Colbeck Road, Lot 2, Section 4, Township 24, Range 2, west of the 6th Meridian, Kootenai District Plan 10426. Period.
Great. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Cherry, Any further comments? Councillor Palmer and then Councillor Cherry.
Yeah, just again, certainly Mr. Bernacki has been here for a very, very long time. And because he's lost in the woods there, he just has to raise proudly the Canadian and Polish flags so people can find him. If somebody said that it's Amazon not getting there, that's not accurate because Mr. Bernacki wouldn't buy from Amazon. He's being a local, buying stuff locally. All right, thanks.
Thanks for that comment. I wanted to see if his hat tilted back a bit with the comment, and it did. So thank you for that. Councillor Cherry, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment, Mayor Sauls. I'm hoping that we all get invited to the ribbon cutting when this is completed. I'm sure there'll be a barbecue.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I am going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And even staff have put their hand up voting in favor. So congratulations, Mr. Bernacki. You now have a place named after you, and we're proud to have been able to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I make a comment?
You may.
I just want to make a comment about this last couple, 3 years. The staff and the council, not about the name change, but the whole city is moving forward. You're helping the people that are paying you guys wages. And it's so nice. You walk into the city hall, what can you do for them, you know? And I did over the last 40, 50 years. We have had some major struggles with council and bureaucrats and all that stuff. But now it's a pleasure to go in and do business. And if we make a mistake, it's corrected. Everybody works together to achieve the same goal. And if I can just ask one more thing, let's keep the taxes down and maybe possibly lower them for next year. And I'll be very happy, man.
Thank you, Mr. Bernacki. Your comments are noted. So Ms. Moore, taxes going up for 1867. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to correspondence. We have a letter that I received, actually a verbal commentary from Mr. Sim from IHA wanting to come to council. We talked briefly about it. He followed that up with an email, and it came from he and his staff for a request for a 30-minute delegation to bring council up to speed on what IHA is doing here in the Revelstoke area. You've received what they have done in Salmon Arm, they presented there. And so my question to you is, are you okay with a 30-minute delegation sitting through that? And or we usually go 10 minutes. So Councillor Palmer, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Souls, and thank you for staff for putting this together and sort of looking, this procedural stuff is important. These, you know, I think it's exciting that actually they're wanting to have a discussion with this. And so I actually look at this as more as a request for a meeting with us as opposed to a delegation. The concern that I would have, you know, we don't know what agendas and they tend to get bogged down, but I'm just wondering, fellow councilors, you know, maybe we have a special committee of the whole that would allow some broader discussions and not curtail to 30 minutes or whatever. So I'm just wondering if that's maybe a more appropriate option, that we actually sit down in a special committee of the whole.
I would be supportive of that as well, and that's kind of the reason for it to coming today. Councillor Staples, you had your hand up. Do you want to make a comment on this? No? Okay. Councillor Cherry and then Councillor Lucille.
Thank you, Mayor Sauls. Through the chair of the corporate officer, if you could save me some time going through this very long document. Do we have minimums for delegation policies for committee of the whole? Perfect. And that
Well-
answers that.
It would be, sorry, Councillor Terry, it wouldn't be a delegation necessarily. It would be more like a workshop kind of, but we would do it within a committee of the whole meeting.
I think it's a perfect use then. Thanks.
Councillor Lucille and then Councillor Plum.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question. With regards to us voting on this for unanimous vote, that would be on the day that they're showing up to do the delegation, or is that a pre-vote that we do to allow them to come here?
We would vote now to have them come here if you're comfortable with sitting through a presentation or a meeting with them at a special committee of the whole.
Okay, yeah, I want to echo what the last two councilors said, that I think a committee of the whole discussion around this is, in my opinion, a better process than through a council meeting.
Ms. Wood and then Councilor.
Councilor Lucia, so if it's a special committee of the whole meeting, there would not be a vote because you would hopefully today make a recommendation that they be invited to attend a special committee of the whole to have a discussion.
Councilor Paul.
So I'll make a motion and I'll speak to the motion. I think it's a second. So I move that the Interior Health be invited to a special committee of the whole. I'll just leave it at that, future committee of the whole. I'll just leave it at that. If I get a second, I'll speak.
I'll second it.
So this is no longer a delegation. We're inviting them to come meet with us.
Right.
So that we're open. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments from Councilor Church?
Just for clarification, the motion to special committee of the whole, would you like to amend that to a future committee of the whole or special meeting?
Sure.
So we don't get bogged.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You have that, Ms. Delassalle, that amendment?
I do, thank you.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to communications, Columbia River Treaty Local Government Committee letter, email, any comments on that? Seeing none, BC Hydro Unit 6 update letter of July 12th. So I did ask for a meeting through Ms. Delassalle regarding BC Hydro Unit 6 and their update. That might have spurred this letter on that we've received. We're still going to ask for a meeting with them at UBCM. We want to talk about housing and those sorts of things as to what they've got planned. Councilor Lucien.
Yeah, thank you, Marshall. Yes, I think it's a great time to bring up housing as well as our fire protection levels with this increase.
Perfect. Thank you for that comment. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Souls. This is a meeting that I'm looking for. Normally, I'm not looking forward to the BC Hydro meetings because they don't really accomplish anything, and this one may not either. I just note, and maybe you have a bit more information, but these kind of projects take years and years and years in planning. And there's some contradictions that are happening. This was planned over and promised over many years, and then just a couple years ago was abruptly canceled.
Yeah, we asked them at UBCM, I think even last year, and they said, no, it's not going to happen until 2030.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit troubled, and it's not necessarily in the purvey of this council, but what's happening with BC Hydro of something that takes years and years and years? I think they actually told us 6 years in one of those meetings is the planning stages, and then so something just doesn't smell right with this. So I think it would be good to keep them accountable and then find out, is this going to get canceled again or what's happening? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other comments from council? Being none, we will again take that up with them at UBCM. Heritage Advisory Commission meeting minutes. Councillor Cherry.
Sorry, Your Worship, I didn't notice it was on the agenda. Yes, the Heritage Commission met in regards to a heritage alteration permit for a caretaker suite above the existing garage for the, I forget the name of the house, apology. The Minto Manor.
Okay, yes.
As well as a gazebo. That is all of the minutes.
All right, that's good, but it seems appropriate. It'll still follow the heritage
yes, the design
declaration
principles.
for that. Yep.
This is one of our bigger projects the heritage team has seen. I believe the original structure was completely brought down to the last brick and then rebuilt. The design keeps in line with the current house, and it's pretty good.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, I'm going to go on to questions from the press. Ms. Delasal, do we have any questions?
We do not have any questions from the press, your worship.
All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to go in camera pursuant to 90.1 G and K of the community charter. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Lusal. All in favor? Motion's carried. And just before we go, Councillor Stapenhurst, you have to leave at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm gonna say goodbye at this time. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
I thought that was supposed to be